Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Can
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So, do you know from where we need to start?
From the beginning, Prabhuji. Yes. New
Okay.
chapter.
So let's begin. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kathamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalan Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahakana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Anvitamscha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Śrīla Prabhupāda-līlāmṛta, Volume 1, Chapter 28, titled India Revisited, Part 2. Prabhupada's train, the Kalka mail, pulled into the Delhi station. Prabhupada and his two disciples had tickets with reserved seat numbers but no car number. So, while Prabhupada waited with the baggage, Achyutananda and Ramanuja ran from one end of the train to the other looking for their car. After they have found their seats and boarded, Achyutananda untied Prabhupada's bedding and spread it open on the upper tier. Prabhupada climbed the little ladder, sat comfortably on his cotton-stuffed quilt, and opened his Sanskrit Srimad Bhagavatam, while Achyutananda and Ramanuja took their seats. It would take around 24 hours to reach Calcutta. Near the end of journey, a group of educated Bengali gentlemen struck up a philosophical conversation with the Swami. "We do not worship any form," said one, speaking fluent English in a loud, deep voice. "We have a marble Omkara that we worship and we sit and pray to that." "That is also a form," said Prabhupada. He was reluctant to attack their philosophical position directly. "We practice Karma Yoga," the gentleman went on, not heeding Prabhupada's previous point, "because in Karma Yoga, you can stay within your position." "We practice Karma Yoga," the gentleman went on, not heeding Prabhupada's previous point, "because in Karma Yoga, you can stay within your position." "But Karma Yoga is not full surrender of the soul," said Prabhupada. "One must come to the stage of bhakti." "Oh no," the man protested. "Emotionalism is very harmful." "Karma Yoga?" Srila Prabhupada exploded. "Karma Yoga is for the fools." Silence. Another man, not with the Bengalis but seated beside them, spoke up. Obviously, Swamiji is a learned scholar, he said. You shouldn't argue like that. The Bengali that Prabhupada had shouted at got up and moved to another seat. Later he came back. Are you insulted? Prabhupada asked him. No, 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 he replied. But I have never heard anyone say that about the teachings of the Gita. The Bengalis then talked with Achyutananda, lighting their cigarettes and smoking freely before him, although they had not dared to do so before Prabhupada. It wasn't proper to smoke in front of sadhu. Bengalis, Achyutananda told them, citing one of the Prabhupada's examples, were very sorry that East Pakistan had been cut off from the rest of the Bengal. But Krishna consciousness could elevate people to international universal consciousness. Then there wouldn't be any such division. The Bengalis appreciated Achyutananda's remark, though they continued to blow smoke in his face as the train rattled over the last miles to Calcutta. Prabhupada was greeted at Calcutta's Howrah station by relatives, mostly from his sister's family and by devotees of the Goswami Mutt. About 50 people were on hand. They offered Prabhupada flower garlands and sandalwood paste and then escorted him and his disciples into a car. Achyutananda and Ramanuja noticed that although Swamiji's sister was shorter and more rotund than Prabhupada, her facial features were strikingly similar. Her name was Bhavatarini, but Prabhupada told them to call her Pisima, aunt. As Prabhupada rode through the streets, he saw many images of goddess Kali, 10-armed, riding a lion. Calcutta was observing the biggest religious celebration in Bengal, Kali Puja, a month of festivities in honor of the goddess Kali. Throughout the city, brass bands and radio music blared, and there were decorative lights, stages, and tents. When Prabhupada arrived at Pasima's house in South Calcutta, his relatives seated him and performed an arti ceremony in his honor, reverentially offering him the traditional items incense, a flaming lamp, flowers. They also bathed his feet. He sat smiling within the crowded room of relatives who were proud of his having journeyed to America on behalf of Lord Krishna. As Prabhupada's family members sang Hare Krishna Kirtan from outside the room, the ladies of the house began singing a high, shrill, wooing sound. Achyutananda and Ramanuja were startled. Pisima had prepared a large feast, much of it cooked in mustard seed oil for the home cooking celebration, and Prabhupada satisfied her by honoring the prasadam, even though he wasn't feeling well and was tired from the train ride. Soon after the festivities, Prabhupada and his disciples retired. Again his health wavered, this time because of his sister's heavy cooking, and he felt a strain on his heart. He sent for an Ayurvedic doctor who taught Achyutananda how to do a very gentle massage to help circulation and restricted Prabhupada from sweets. As Prabhupada recovered, he began regularly lecturing in his room during the evening. Although he spoke in English for his disciples, the room would soon fill to capacity with relatives and friends. There were generally disturbances from outside due to noises of Kali Puja. Nearby Pisima's house was a large tent, a center for evening street parties, which included a sweets counter, fireworks, and an excessively loud public address system that incongruously blared Julie Andrews singing songs from the sound of music. One evening, as Prabhupada spoke, my only qualification is that I have unflinching faith in my spiritual master. A large firecracker exploded right outside the door. The audience smiled tolerantly. Yes, Prabhupada said, taking the explosion as confirmation of his words. It is glorious. One night, Prabhupada explained that according to Bhagavad Gita, demigod worshippers are less intelligent. People worship Kali for material rewards. He said, but since all material things are temporary, such worship is inferior to the worship of Krishna. Kali is not able to grant the worshipper liberation from birth and death. Which is better? Achyutananda asked. The worship of Christians and Jews, which is most impersonal, or the worship of non-absolute by the worshippers of Kali? Worship of Kali is better. Prabhupada said, because the worshippers are in the Vedic system, they are more likely to bow down to Radha Krishna or chant Hare Krishna than a Christian or a Jew. There is a chance that they will become Krishna devotees in the future if they lose their material attachments. Prabhupada regularly invited his godbrothers and their disciples to join him in America. Sometimes he seemed to do it just to get them at least to think more of preaching. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had once chided that the Gaudiya Math ashram was no more than a joint mess, the members going out each day and collecting enough alms so that they could eat together, but with no dynamic vision for preaching. So Prabhupada's frequent invitations, you should go to America, come back with me, would stir them even if they couldn't actually come. On visiting the ashram of Bhakti Saranga Goswami, Prabhupada saw that the audience consisted almost entirely of old widows, but he spoke as usual. One day, Prabhupada's godbrother Haridas Swami came by. He was heavy set and loud, and he spoke very rapidly. Very happy to see you coming here from America. This is wonderful. Krishna is the summon born, the cause of all causes. I want you to come to my temple. When Haridas Maharaj went into a separate room, Prabhupada turned to Achyutananda. He wants us to go to his temple, but to go there, I will have to go onto a rickshaw and then onto a tram car and then onto a train and then another rickshaw. Aware of Prabhupada's weak condition, Achyutananda began shaking his head negatively. When Haridas Maharaj returned, Achyutananda said that Swamiji couldn't come to his mutt. Who are you? Haridas Maharaj said angrily. You are just a brahmachari. You should risk your life. Achyutananda replied, I will risk my life, but I cannot risk my spiritual master's life. Haridas Maharaj left insulted. Don't worry, Prabhupada said. He is just very talkative. Prabhupada paid a visit to B.P. Keshav Maharaj, the god brother who had awarded him the sannyas order in 1959. Prabhupada sat on the floor and spoke in Bengali to his god brother, who was very old and apparently on his deathbed. Prabhupada had Achyutananda sing for Keshav Maharaj. Keshav Maharaj requested Prabhupada to visit his ashram Devananda Mutt in Navadvip. Srila Prabhupada had wanted to return to the US as a permanent resident, but his students in America hadn't been able to get the necessary clearance from the US Immigration Department. The devotees in the Boston had gotten in touch with a few Harvard Indology professors but had obtained no signed statements about Prabhupada's importance. All the ISKCON centers have written formal letters inviting A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami and had presented copies to the US Immigration Office. But unless the devotees could produce something more impressive, like a government recommendation or a university offer for him to join their faculty, Prabhupada could not become a US resident. On October 13, Prabhupada wrote to his disciples in Montreal, I am very anxious to go to Montreal. Therefore, you must try your best to get my immigration visa on the basis of my being an authorized Vaishnava minister based on Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Rather than wait indefinitely for permanent residency, Prabhupada decided to apply for a visitor visa. He went with Achyutananda to the US consulate on Harrington Road. There, in the middle of Calcutta, they entered a small piece of America with everything shiny, new, and efficient air conditioners, stainless steel, water coolers, electric security doors, US Marines, and American flags. Sitting before the secretary of the consulate, Prabhupada looked small and humble. I want a visa to see my students in America, he said softly. Do you have any letters? The secretary asked. Achyutananda handed over the letters from the temples. The secretary reviewed them and quickly gave Prabhupada a 4-month visa. While leaving the building, Prabhupada remarked, I will just get anything and then it can, I will just get anything and then it can be extended. On October 19, Prabhupada wrote Hayagriva regarding his imminent return. I am already preparing for returning to USA and I have obtained a visitor's visa the day before yesterday. Most probably I shall take the first chance to return to USA upon my return from Navadvip. On October 22nd, he wrote Umapati, you will be glad to know that I have already secured a visitor's visa to your country and have asked my travel agent to book my seat on the earliest possible date. I think I shall be in your midst by the middle of November. On October 24th, Prabhupada travelled with Achyutananda and Ramanuja to Navadvipa. Although the local train took 4 hours. The lush Bengal countryside gradually revealed its heavenly beauty, and Prabhupada's health seemed to improve just from the pleasant journey. By the time they arrived at Navadvip, Achyutananda and Ramanuja were also feeling relief from the rigors of Calcutta. For the first time in the weeks, they could open their eyes without blinking through the drops of perspiration. A large kirtan party of brahmacharis, mostly members of Keshav Maharaj Devananda Gaudiya Mutt, met Srila Prabhupada at Navadvip train station. The brahmacharis were meticulously neat, with their robes all dyed the same shade of saffron, their Vaishnava tilak marking bold and distinct, their heads smoothly shaved, their shikhas precise. They offered Prabhupada and his party aromatic garlands made from flowers resembling lotuses and gathered around Srila Prabhupada with worshipful enthusiasm. Also present were a few of Sridhar Maharaj's disciples waiting with rickshaws to take Prabhupada and his disciples to their guru's ashram. Although between the two groups there was unspoken competition for Prabhupada's presence, he had previously agreed to go to Sridhar Maharaj's place. He promised the members of Devananda Mutt that he would visit them next. Soon after leaving the station, the rickshaws turned onto a road lined with lush tropical vegetation, banana trees, tall bamboos, exotic blossoming flowers. Prabhupada saw simple villagers working near their straw and mud huts, and in the distance the spire of Sridhar Maharaj's temple. A kirtan party greeted Prabhupada at the outer gates of Sridhar Maharaj ashram, chanting Hare Krishna and playing kartals and clay mridangas. Prabhupada entered the temple, offered obeisances before the deities of Radha and Krishna, and then went to see his god brother. Sridhar Maharaj was very loud, his sight failing, his joints stiff with arthritis. He stayed mostly in his room or sometimes on his veranda and moved only with slow, rickety motions. He was an austere and kindly Vaishnava and smiled heartily on seeing Prabhupada and his disciples. In fluent English, he began praising Prabhupada's preaching in America, repeatedly using Prabhupada's phrase, Krishna consciousness. Swamiji's work, he said, was the fulfillment of Lord Chaitanya's prophecy that Krishna consciousness would one day spread all over the world. He laughed and smiled and praised the Krishna consciousness movement with no trace of jealousy. So you appreciate this phrase, Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada smiled. Yes, Sridhar Maharaj replied, and the disciples of Swami Maharaj also. And he turned towards Achyutananda and Ramanuja. With very little effort, your preaching will go far. The boys were astonished. This was really something to write home about, sitting on the roof of a temple in this jungle paradise with old Sridhar Maharaj appreciating Swami's work as the greatest work on behalf of Lord Chaitanya, and Swamiji sitting relaxed, grinning and making humble replies. It was the high point of the trip. My dear Satswarupa, please accept my blessings. I have already duly received the invitation from Harvard University. It is understood that they are scheduling me for 20th November between 6 and 10 p.m. I can start immediately on the strength of my visitor's visa, but I am awaiting for Mukunda's reply for his trying for my permanent visa. Yesterday we have all come to Navadvip. This place is another establishment of one of my god brothers. It is very nice and extensive place, and my god brother B.R. Sridhar Maharaj has spared one entire nice house for our stay. He has also agreed to cooperate with our society. We should observe his birthday ceremony tomorrow, and the brahmacharis shall learn how to celebrate the spiritual master's birthday. Vyasa Puja Day, the observance of B.R. Sridhar Maharaj's birthday, was October 27. His disciples had erected a pandal on the temple road, and about 100 people attended. Sridhar Maharaj sat on his Vyasasan, and Prabhupada and other sannyasis, all wearing flower garland, sat in chairs next to Sridhar Maharaj. Prabhupada spoke in Bengali. Some of Sridhar Maharaj's disciples, inspired by Prabhupada's preaching about the glories of spreading Krishna consciousness in the West, delivered speeches in English as Vyasapuja homages to their spiritual master. Sridhar Maharaj, also speaking in English, gave a very scientific lecture on Krishna consciousness and the senses. Afterwards, Prabhupada told his disciples he was very high he has very high realizations, but he is keeping them to himself. Every morning before dawn, Sridhar Maharaj sent out a party of brahmacharis to perform kirtan in the villages. On Prabhupada's request, Achyutananda and Ramanuja joined them, leaving before sunshine and returning at dusk. Although Prabhupada and Sridhar Maharaj usually remained at the temple, one day they got into a rickshaw and accompanied the chanting party through the streets of Navadvip. The festival at the Devananda Mutt was a big affair. In contrast to Bhakti Saranga Goswami Ashram in Calcutta, where only widows had attended, B.P. Keshav Maharaj Devananda Mutt had um, about 200 brahmacharis and 20 sannyasis. Some of the brahmacharis, however, were not full time but were attending school outside, so the ashram's atmosphere was a little like that of a social club. But when the kirtan and the circumambulation of the temple began, 700 people took part. The impeccably dressed sannyasis, whose every piece of saffron cloth, including their cloth wrapped danda, was dyed exactly the same shade, danced back and forth before the deities. A dozen sannyasis danced in a group, their dandas moving together, dipping and raising, forward and backward to the delight of the brahmacharis. Prabhupada sat on a dais with other dignitaries and spoke to the festival audience. Achyutananda, on Prabhupada's request, spoke a few words in Bengali, bringing laughs and applause. Sridhar Maharaj spoke gravely in Bengali. A sannyasi from the Devananda Mutt, speaking for their absent leader, B.P. Keshav Maharaj, proclaimed in impassioned tone that although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement had been predicted to spread throughout the world, no one had known how it could be possible. Now, thanks to the work of Bhaktivedanta Swami, it was happening. After a large feast in the evening, Prabhupada's party returned to Sridhar Maharaj's ashram. Sridhar Maharaj intimated to Prabhupada that the Devananda Mutt emphasized quantity whereas his own ashram emphasized quality. Curious as to what this meant, Achyutananda wanted to ask Prabhupada, but the time didn't seem appropriate. After 9 days in Navadvip, Prabhupada was ready to return to Calcutta and prepare for his trip back to the United States. He and his two disciples took rickshaws to Navadvip and caught a morning train to Calcutta. On the train, Achyutananda timidly put forward the question that had been on his mind. Swamiji, what did you and Sridhar Maharaj discuss? Oh, many, many things, Prabhupada replied. But if I were to tell you now, you would faint. After a silence, Prabhupada added, Still, I offered him to be president of our society. I knew he would not accept. He is keeping things within him. Anyway, this is all beyond you. Do not have any ill feelings towards any of my god brothers. They are all great souls. There are just some differences on preaching and spreading. Even in your mind, do not feel any ill will towards them. At the same time, do not mix very thickly with them. Achyutananda suggested, maybe if these two sannyasis had each other's qualities combined. Ah, yes, Prabhupada said, now you have understood me. Śrīla Prabhupada's intention in coming to Calcutta was simply to prepare to leave for America. He had his visitor's visa already, but he thought that if he stayed in India a little longer, in San Francisco, Mukunda might be able to secure permanent American residency for him. He went to his sister's house to spend his last days in Calcutta there, but after only a few days, he felt that the Radha Govinda deity, the deity he had worshipped in his childhood, was calling him. When Prabhupada had been no more than an infant, his servant used to take him and his cousin Subuddhi Malik on a perambulator, wheel them into the temple courtyard, and take them before the altar of Radha Govinda. And as soon as Prabhupada could walk, his father would hold his hand and take him before the deity every day. Sometimes Prabhupada would go alone and stand for hours gazing upon Radha and Krishna, who appeared very beautiful to him with their slanted eyes and fine dress and ornaments. It had been for the pleasure of Radha Govinda that as a child, beginning at the age of 5, he had performed his miniature Rath Yatra festival. Just 2 weeks ago, when Prabhupada had been staying at his sister's house, his health had prevented him from going to the North Calcutta to see the deity. So he had gone to Navadvip without taking their blessings. But now, Although still weak and although preoccupied with traveling to the US, he felt that the deity was calling him. For the past 150 years, the Radha Govinda temple had been maintained by aristocratic Maliks, a branch of Prabhupada's own family. The Maliks had owned the entire block on Harrison Road, now Mahatma Gandhi Road, and rents from the block long building opposite the temple had financed the opulent worship of Radha Govinda. In those days, the deities had been worshipped on a gorgeous altar in a large kirtan hall, and they had been dressed in silks and ornamented with gilded and bejeweled crowns and necklaces. All the pious Vaishnava families of the neighborhood would visit, and on Janmashtami, Krishna's birthday, even British gentlemen and ladies would come. But today the Malik family possessed only remnants of the European art and furnishings that had once filled their homes and temple, relics from an age of former grandeur, and the worship of Radha Govinda had pitifully deteriorated. Srila Prabhupada was pained to see the neglect. No longer were Radha and Govinda the center of the Muliks' lives. The deity worship still continued, conducted by paid brahmanas, but few people came to see. The main attraction now was the golden deity of the goddess Kali on the large altar in the Kirtan hall. Radha and Govinda in the family for many generations had been relegated to a small upstairs room in the Mullik compound. Their dress was no longer elegant, their valuable crowns and ornaments had disappeared, and there were no large kirtans as before. Only a paid Brahmana came in the morning to rub sandalwood pulp on their shining bodies, dress them carefully in whatever simple clothes remained, and place jasmine garlands around their necks, while a widow or two watched the silent proceedings. Krishna consciousness was dying in India, dying from neglect. At least it was dying here in Calcutta and in many other places in India. Even in Vrindavan, the impersonal philosophy prevailed, and grand old temples had become residents for pigeons, monkeys, and dogs. Sad as it was, it only reinforced Prabhupada's conviction of the need to return to the fertile ground in the West. Although here in India the spirit of devotion was dying, in the West it was just beginning to grow in New York, San Francisco, Montreal, Boston. If pure Krishna consciousness were dying in India, then why shouldn't it be transplanted in the fertile West? There it would flourish. It would spread worldwide and even back to India again. When India bent on following the West, saw the materially advanced Americans taking to Krishna consciousness, she would re-evaluate her own culture. Prabhupada saw a Krishna conscious revolution beginning in the United States. He didn't consider himself its creator. He was a servant of Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya's desire was that every Indian help to spread Krishna consciousness worldwide. Unfortunately, the very verses in the scriptures that prophesied a worldwide Krishna consciousness movement were a puzzle even to most of Srila Prabhupada's God brothers. They admitted it. But soon they would see. There was great potential in the West. Prabhupada had shown many of his god brothers the newspaper articles, Swami's flock, chanting in Tompkins Square Park, ancient trance dance at Stanford University, and he had brought some disciples with him. These were only beginnings. Much more had to be done. And who would help? BP Keshav Maharaj was dying. Sridhar Maharaj couldn't come out. Who else? Most Indians were impersonalist, non-devotional yogis or demigod worshippers. As Srila Prabhupada stood before the Radha Govinda deity, explaining to Achyutananda and Ramanuja how he had worshipped them in his childhood and how they had been his first inspiration in Krishna consciousness, he understood deeply that he must take Krishna consciousness all over the world, even if single-handedly. Of course, he was not alone. He had disciples, and they were opening new centers even in his absence. He would have to return to them very soon and supervise his growing movement. The Muliks regarded Prabhupada more as a relative than a spiritual leader. To them, he was a hometown cousin who had done something successful in America. Narendranath Malik, a childhood friend of Prabhupada's, called Prabhupada Dada, brother, and regularly joked with him. The Maliks were glad to give Prabhupada and his two followers a large room in temple compound for as long as they wanted to stay in Calcutta. Prabhupada set up his usual arrangement, a mat on the floor, a low table for a desk, and beside the desk his few possessions. Here he could study and write, receive guests, or rest. Daily some local woman brought Prabhupada and his disciples simple prasadam in a tiffin. The Kali Puja celebrations drew large crowds into the main hall before the Kali deity, and Prabhupada gave regular lectures there from Srimad Bhagavatam. He also spoke in the homes of various Mullik families. The hosts, members of the dwindling Bengali aristocracy, would offer Prabhupada and his disciples Radha Govinda Prasadam, cut fruits, water chestnuts, minced ginger, soaked and salted moong beans. Most of those who came to visit Prabhupada in his room were not really interested in spiritual life, but they wanted his blessings. There was a local Brahmana whose occupation was to go from shop to shop carrying a few flowers, a cup of water, and brass container with sandalwood paste and kumkuma powder. Using this paraphernalia, he would offer a blessing to the shopkeepers every day and receive a few paisa in payment. Knowing Prabhupada to be a Vaishnava, the Brahmana came to see him to receive a spiritual benediction. The man's forehead was decorated with both Vaishnava Tilak, two vertical lines, and Shaiva Tilak, three horizontal lines. After the man left, Achyutananda asked Swamiji, who was that? He is hired Brahmana. Prabhupada said, when he goes to Vaishnavas, he gives them blessings, and when he goes to Shaivites, he gets money. He has to make a living. Another man came asserting that he wanted to teach Prabhupada's disciples Hindi. He asked Prabhupada to help him get to America, but Prabhupada told him, you must take sannyas. Then I will bring you to America. After two visits, the man stopped coming. A Mullik relation, a small, bald, bright-eyed man, came by one day carrying a book entitled Interesting Studies. He posed philosophical questions, simple queries about karma, jnana, and bhakti, but then would interrupt Prabhupada and answer them himself. Finally, when the man asked one of his questions, Prabhupada replied, so what is your answer? The man gave a general answer, but later when Prabhupada began explaining that Lord Krishna, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, is the supreme personality of Godhead, the man interrupted. You may call God Krishna, call him Shiva, call him no, Prabhupada said, Krishna is the Supreme Lord and all others are demigods. The man became a little nervous and quoted a popular Bengali impersonalist who taught that all gods and all methods of worship are the same. He is an upstart, Prabhupada said. That is not the teaching of the Gita. What is this other teaching? It is all utter confusion. If you go on speaking like this, the man said angrily, I'll have to leave this place. Please don't criticize this Paramahamsa. Why not? Prabhupada said. He is a concoctor. The man got up and left, calling out, you don't know Krishna, as he left the room. Prabhupada turned to Achyutananda and Ramanuja and smiled. Every time you introduce Krishna, they say, why only Krishna? But that is what Krishna says. Mattah padaram nadnyat. There is no truth superior to me. These rascal impersonalists have ruined Bengal. One day a man gave Prabhupada a 200 rupee donation and Prabhupada immediately asked the pujari for an old set of Radha Govinda's clothes, gave the clothes to some of the temple ladies along with the 200 rupees and asked that the ladies make gold embroidered dresses for Radha Govinda. Radha Govinda are taking care of us, he said, so we can take care of them also. Ramanuja's beard was huge. Looking like an ordinary hippie, he misrepresented Srila Prabhupada wherever they went. Prabhupada told Achyutananda, tell your friend to shave. Achyutananda and Ramanuja talked, but Ramanuja wouldn't shave. Wanting Ramanuja to agree on his own, Prabhupada didn't ask him again, but when a copy of the latest Back to Godhead magazine arrived from the States, Prabhupada got an idea. Two illustrations in the magazine showed Haridas Thakur converting a prostitute. After her conversion, the prostitute had shaved her head. Showing the pictures to Ramanuja, Prabhupada asked, what is the difference between this picture and that picture? I don't know, Swamiji replied. Ramanuja replied. No, Prabhupada said, pointing to the pictures. What is the difference in this picture? Oh, she is a devotee. Yes, Prabhupada said. But What else? Oh, she had a shaved head. Yes, Prabhupada smiled. A devotee has a shaved head. Do you want me to shave my head? Yes, Ramanuja shaved. But within a few days, he began growing his beard and hair back. From now on, Prabhupada told Achyutananda, no more cheap initiations. They have to know something. Ramanuja hung on. Prabhupada wanted Ramanuja and Achyutananda to remain in India after his departure and continue to try for the American house in Vrindavan. Ramanuja wrote his own impressions to his friend Mukunda in San Francisco. Please be advised that we are doing all we can to get him off as soon as possible, but this primitive Indian government is putting obstacles in our way. The man who could have given Swamiji clearance for his P form has just drowned, so the clearance has to be made in Bombay. This is the delay. Here in Calcutta, we are having lots of fun addressing different people. Swamiji makes Achyutananda and myself give a short speech. I am becoming more and more expert at this. I think that he makes us speak in order to show the audience that we American Vaishnavas are for real. And also, he wants everyone to preach Krishna consciousness. It is very difficult to take care properly of Swamiji's health here. For one thing, it is a big thing to serve sweets in India, and it is impolite to decline. Also, we get all kinds of visitors. We have not been able to go to bed before 11 o'clock, and Swamiji automatically wakes at 3. In this respect, the people here are very inconsiderate, but if Achyutananda and I ask them to leave, they will ask Swamiji if they should, and Swamiji, of course, says no. Anyway, his heartbeat is a little fast, and sometimes it is alarmingly fast. So I suggest that you get a good heart specialist to see him. Please arrange for his doctor and above all, make sure that Swamiji gets plenty of rest. You need not restrict visitors too strictly because if the company is good, Swamiji seems to enjoy visitors. Please do all you can to get Swamiji's beats to normal again. His chariot needs to be fixed up so that he can remain on this earth for at least another 10 years. Knowing that Swamiji would soon be returning, the devotees in America began to increase their entrances, each group asking him to come to their particular city. On November 4th, Prabhupada wrote Mukunda, as you say that my absence is being felt now surely more deeply than ever, so I am also feel to start immediately without waiting. And to Mukunda's wife Janaki, he wrote, every minute I think of you, and as you asked me to go to San Francisco while returning from India, I am trying to fulfill my promise. I am thinking of going directly to San Francisco. At the bottom of the same letter to Mukunda and Janaki, Achyutananda added a health report. Swamiji is looking healthy and living and working regularly, but his pulse rate is generally too fast. Last night it was 95, unusually fast even for him as it generally hovers between 83 and 86. Prabhupada decided not to wait any longer on the chance that Mukunda might secure him permanent residency. I want to return to your country where there is good air and good water. He told Achyutananda one day, every day we are receiving letters that the devotees want me there. I thought that in my absence they might deteriorate and I was reluctant to even come to India. But now I see that it is growing. There is need for me to go and supervise the expansion. So I want to go back. The only impediment now seemed to be a delayed P form, a clearance from the Bank of India required for an Indian citizen traveling abroad. I am just ready for starting for America, but as you know, our competent government is very slow in action. The P form was submitted almost a month ago, but still it is undergoing red tapeism. The visa was granted to me within half an hour. The passage money was deposited within 2 days, but unfortunately, the Reserve Bank of India is delaying the matter unnecessarily. I expect the P form at any moment, and as soon as I get it, I shall start for your country. Just to make certain that Swamiji would come first to San Francisco, Mukunda sent a telegram to Calcutta. Swamiji, Brahmananda, and I agree you start immediately. Advise exact arrival date, Mukunda. Prabhupada had planned his route through Tokyo, intending to stop for a day to probe if there is any possibility of starting a center. In Tokyo, he would let Mukunda know by telephone his arrival time in San Francisco. But 3 weeks passed while Prabhupada continued to wait for his P visa, P form. Meanwhile, he received good news from New York. The Macmillan Company's interest in Bhagavad Gita was real. The contract was being drawn. Pleased with Brahmananda, he wrote to him on November 11 explaining his visions for distributing Krishna conscious literature. If publications are there, we can work from one center only, like New York or San Francisco, for propagating our cult all over the world. Let us stick to the publication of BTG more and more nicely and publish some Vedic literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, etc. As Prabhupada's mind turned more to the preaching that awaited him in America, he assessed what he had done so far, what he would do, and the process by which he would do it. I am not in agreement with Mr. Altman that we are expanding very thinly. In my opinion, a single sincere soul can maintain a center. You know, I started the center at 26 Second Avenue alone. I took the risk of $200 per month for rent. At that time, there were no assistants. Mukunda was at that time a friend, but there was no responsibility for him for maintaining the center. Gradually, Kirtanananda and Hayagriva joined, but they did not take any responsibility. Still, I was maintaining the establishment simply depending on Krishna, and then Krishna sent me everything men and money. Similarly, if a sincere soul goes out and opens a center in any part of the world, Krishna will help him in all respects. Without being empowered by Krishna, nobody can preach Krishna consciousness. It is not academic qualification or financial strength which helps in these matters, but it is a sincerity of purpose which helps us always. Therefore, I wish that you, Brahmananda, will remain in charge of New York. Let Satswarupa be in charge of Boston. Let Mukunda be in charge of San Francisco. Let Janardhan be in charge of Montreal. Let Nandarani and Dayananda be in charge of Los Angeles. And let Subal Das be in charge of Santa Fe. In this way, you will follow my example as I did in the beginning at 26 Second Avenue. That is preaching, cooking, writing, talking, chanting, everything one man's work. I never thought about the audience. I was prepared to chant if there were no man to hear me. The principle of chanting is to glorify the Lord and not to attract a crowd. If Krishna hears nicely, then he will ask some sincere devotees to gather in such place. Therefore, be advised that thousands of centers may be started if we find out a sincere soul for each and every center. We do not require more men to start. If there is one sincere soul, that is sufficient to start a new center. On November 12th, Srila Prabhupada wrote to Krishna Devi, I am coming soon to San Francisco. I shall let you know the exact date sometime next week. I am coming over very soon to see you when everything will be adjusted. Ha- Hope you are well. And the notes from Achyutananda continue to arrive. Please tell the devotees out there to take good care of him. It is very hard task trying to restrain him from overworking himself, but they must be strict. He still has to take his medicines and get his massage every day. On November 20, Prabhupada dispatched by boat to New York more than 800 copies of the first three volumes of his Srimad Bhagavatam, and on the next day his P form finally declared. Immediately he booked passage on Pan America Airlines and sent a cable informing Mukunda that he would arrive in San Francisco on November 24th at 12:45 p.m. But again his departure was delayed, this time by a strike by the Communist Party in Calcutta. Businesses closed, cars, buses, rickshaws, and trains stopped running, riots broke out, there were murders and assassinations. Meanwhile, Prabhupada remained at Radha Govinda temple. My return to your country is already settled, but due to a petty revolution in Calcutta, I am not able to leave. Our San Francisco friends may be very anxious because I sent them two telegrams, one informing them of my arrival and the other cancelling it. Future arrangements are pending. 2 weeks passed. While waiting in his room for the political strike to end, Prabhupada received a letter from Umapati, one of the devotees he had initiated at the first initiation in New York in September of 1966. Umapati had given up practicing Krishna consciousness for half a year, but now he wrote to say he was back. Prabhupada replied, It is my duty to deliver you the right thing in the right earnestness, and it is the duty of receiver to act in the standard spiritual regulation. When you left us, I simply prayed to Krishna for your return to Krishna consciousness because that was my duty. Any good soul who approaches me once for spiritual enlightenment is supposed to be depending on my responsibility to get him back to Krishna, back to Godhead. The disciple may misunderstand a bona fide spiritual master being obliged to do so under the pressure of Maya's influence, but a bona fide spiritual master never lets go a devotee once accepted. When a disciple misunderstands a bona fide spiritual master, the master regrets for his inability to protect the disciple and sometimes he cries with tears in the eyes. We had an experience while my Guru Maharaj was alive. One of my disciples who accepted sannyas was uh, was one day forcibly dragged by his wife. My Guru Maharaj lamented with tears in his eyes, saying that he could not save the soul. We should always, therefore, be careful of being attacked by Maya's influence, and the only means of guarantee is to chant Hare Krishna offenselessly. When Prabhupada received news of quarreling in the Los Angeles temple, he replied to Nandarani, I know that my presence is very urgently required. Arrangement is already completed and circumstances alone have checked my departure. Please therefore don't be worried. I am coming to your place within a fortnight. At the end of the first week of December, the strike ended and Srila Prabhupada again booked passage. You will be pleased to know that I have purchased my ticket for New York via Tokyo and San Francisco. I am starting tomorrow morning at 9:30. By evening, reaching Tokyo via Bangkok and Hong Kong. I shall rest 24 hours in Tokyo and on the 14th at night, I am starting for San Francisco. By local time, I am reaching San Francisco on the same day, the 14th at 12:45 p.m. by PAA 846. Yesterday, I have sent one telegram to this effect and I hope I shall reach there safely as scheduled. I am so glad to learn that Satya Brata and yourself are trying to get the teachings of Lord Chaitanya published. You do not know how pleased I am to hear this news. When one book is published, I think I have conquered an empire. So try to publish as many books as possible, and that will enhance the beauty and prestige of our society. The impersonalist mission has nothing to say substantial, but because they have money and have published so many rubbish literature, they have become very cheaply popular. You can just imagine how much powerful our society will become when we have as many substantial literatures published. We should not only publish in English but also in other important languages such as French and German. When the day for Prabhupada's departure finally arrived, he gave last instructions to Achyutanandan and Ramanuja. Just pray to Lord Krishna that I can go to America, he requested Achyutananda. How can I? Achyutananda replied. You will be leaving me. No, Srila Prabhupada replied. We'll always remain packed up together if you remember my teachings. If you preach, you will become strong, and all these teachings will be in the proper perspective. When we stop our preaching, then everything becomes stagnated and we lose our life. Even here in India, people think that they know everything, but they are wrong. There is no end to hearing about Krishna. God is unlimited, so no one can say, I know everything about God. Those who say they know everything about God do not know. So everyone will appreciate you. Don't fear. Achyutananda. When I returned to the room after sending of Swamiji and paying my obeisances at the airport, I felt a void. I felt very lonely and rather weak. I returned to the room in front of Sri Radha Govinda and chanting on my beads, I started pacing back and forth. What will I preach? The black and white marble floor passed under me. I stepped on the cracks, in between the cracks, and on the black and white marble again and again. Then I realized I wasn't seeing Radha Krishna. So I sat down directly in front and saw the brilliant form of Radha Govindji and my eyes filled with tears. Srila Prabhupada spent his stopover in Tokyo mostly in going to his hotel and checking into a room, bathing, resting, and eating, and returning to the airport the next day in the next time for his flight to San Francisco. But he did speak. with a government secretary explaining that Krishna consciousness was a universal philosophy for reviving a person's original eternal consciousness. And he explained the crucial need for Krishna consciousness in human society. The secretary, however, said he felt certain that the Japanese government wouldn't be able to help a religious movement. Prabhupada was annoyed. This supposedly educated man was so ignorant as to mistake Krishna consciousness for merely another sectarian religion. Prabhupada wanted intelligent men to try to understand Krishna consciousness and understand that the Gita was actual knowledge, transcendental knowledge, beyond the inferior knowledge of the senses and the mind. But he had his plane to catch. Japan would have to wait. The passengers and flight crew saw Prabhupada as an elderly Indian man dressed in saffron robes. The stewardesses weren't sure at first whether he spoke English, but when he asked them for fruits, they saw that he could and that he was a kind gentleman. He was quiet, putting on his glasses and reading from an old book of Indian scripture for hours at a time, or moving his lips in prayer while fingering Indian prayer beads in a cloth pouch, or sometimes resting beneath a blanket, his eyes shut. No one knew or bothered to inquire into what he was doing. They didn't know that anxious young hearts were awaiting him in San Francisco, or that the Macmillan Company in New York wanted to publish his English translation of Bhagavad Gita, or that he had spiritual centers in two countries with plans for expansion all over the world. Prabhupada sat patiently chanting often, his hand in his bead bag, depending on Krishna as the hours passed. After a 10-hour flight, the plane landed in San Francisco. Standing with hundreds of other passengers, Prabhupada gradually made his way to the exit. Down the long attached tunnel, even before he reached the terminal building, he could see Govinda Dasi and a few other disciples smiling and waving on the other side of a glass partition. As he entered the terminal building, he moved towards the glass and his disciples dropped to his knees offering obeisances. As they raised their hands, he smiled and continued walking down the corridor while they walked alongside, only the glass partition separating them. Then they disappeared from his view as he walked down the stairway toward immigration and customs. The downstairs area was also glassed in, and Prabhupada could see more than 50 devotees and friends waiting eagerly. As they again caught sight of him, they cried out as a group, Hare Krishna. Swamiji looked wonderful to them, tanned from his 6 months in India, younger and more sprit, sprightly. He smiled and triumphantly held up his hands in greeting. Devotees were crying in happiness. As Prabhupada stood in line at the customs inspection point, he could hear the devotees' kirtan. The glass walls only partially masked the sound. The customs officials ignored the chanting, although the connection between the saffron robed passenger and the joyful chanters was not hard to see. Srila Prabhupada waited in line, glancing now and then at his chanting disciples. Since he had already sent ahead the 800 books and several crates of musical instruments, he had only one suitcase to place on the table before the inspector. Methodically, inspector went through the contents: cotton saris for the girls, silk garments for the Jagannath deities, kartals, saffron dhotis and kurtas, a cotton grater, and little bottles of Ayurvedic medicine. What are these? The inspector probed. The little bottles looked strange and he called for another inspector. A delay. Swamiji's disciples became perturbed by the pity-minded customs inspectors poking through Swamiji's things, now opening the tightly corked bottles, sniffing and checking the content. The inspector seemed satisfied. Prabhupada tried to close his suitcase, but he couldn't work the zipper. Another delay. The devotee, still anxiously chanting, watched as Swamiji, with the help of gentlemen behind him, managed to zip his suitcase closed. Swamiji walked towards the glass door. The devotees began chanting madly. As he stepped through the door, a devotee blew a conch shell that resounded loudly throughout the hall. Devotees garlanded him, and everyone pressed in, handing him flowers. He entered their midst as a beloved father enters a reciprocates the embrace of his loving children. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It was very wonderful how he came and to America again. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it was very nice how things are changing. Yeah, I would say so rapidly, right? So we see that how many things are happening within that short span, within a few months. So many things are happening. That shows that Vaishnavas' time is very precious. They don't waste time anywhere. They use the best possibilities everywhere, to gain strength by visiting pilgrims, to gain strength by visiting the god brothers, god sisters, yeah, visiting senior Vaishnavas, and then also, yeah, seeking every opportunity to preach. Uh, it doesn't matter what time it is, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or even more, but again getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, so I found it very, very inspiring. Of course, every every page of his diary, yeah, is definitely very inspiring.
So Achyutananda and Rama, I forgot the name,
Ramanuja.
Ramanuja. So they stayed India and they
This is what
were
I read.
preaching.
I don't know. Only from the diary, I understand. Yes, they stayed there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's also a great thing, right? Two foreigners staying in India. How much fixed they are in Krishna consciousness, how much faith they have in Prabhupada, how much responsible they are towards their spiritual master. Yeah, it's very nice.
Yes, even at that time when foreigners were not so oftenly go there.
Yeah. And also they were not, they're not considering the foreigners or their disciples so great. They were seeing only Prabhupada, giving full respect, everything. But yeah, so that shows. And another thing is also the eagerness of the disciples in the US. Yeah, yeah. So they are very, very eager to meet Srila Prabhupada, be once again with him, once again be blessed, showing their eagerness. Was very nice. And book publication, I think we are getting to the book distribution, right? Book distribution marathon is going on. The importance of books. Even if one book is published, Prabhupada is so feels that an empire, he has conquered an empire, which means, that shows that it's a very, very responsibility in itself, and not so easy thing, but also very pleasing thing for Prabhupada. Yeah, these are few things. What about others? How did you feel? How did you find?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. In the first half of this chapter, when we came across Prabhupada's God brothers.
Mhm.
So when we were in Vizag, I think in our last recent vacation, we went to a temple. It was a Radha Krishna temple, but it is called Krishna Chaitanya Mutt. It was founded by Srila Prabhupada's god brother only, Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj.
Mhm.
So when we went inside, we thought it was like, an ISKCON temple, but there in the Guru Parampara, Prabhupada's god brother photo was there.
Mhm.
So in general, Prabhuji, like even there are some mutts in India, right? Like from Srila Prabhupada's god brother who are still trying to preach Krishna
Yeah, there are
consciousness.
still, there is, there are like Narayan Maharaj is also there, who is also, and we also saw Sridhar Maharaj, and also, so
Mhm.
there are, of course, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Mutt, yeah, is anyway there, which was kind of after Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur left the planet, then they took care of it. Chaitanya Mutt. You see, so many mutts in the name of Chaitanya or Gaudiya Mutt or Chaitanya Saraswati Mutt. So many mutts are there.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Either they are from the God brothers of Prabhupada or also the God brothers of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So different mutts are there.
Yes, Prabhuji. Okay.
Yeah, but as Prabhupada is saying, yeah, that is also a very nice instruction that we don't develop a great thick relation with them. At the same time, we don't see that hey, they are not so important, not so great. We respect them, so we both are important. Here
Yes,
also
Prabhuji.
in Cologne, we have God brother, we have disciples of Narayan Maharaj. Yeah, they come to temple. So yeah, they're also great in devotion. At the same time, we cannot compromise our Prabhupada's standards that he has set. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Sometimes this question comes like, okay, can we allow them to give a class? We just see that how it can impact. It's not that we take a decision, right? Whatever GBC says, so it says that okay, for preaching, for giving classes, yeah, that's not encouraging for anyone, yeah, because that can we are speaking Prabhupada on behalf of Prabhupada, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So that we should keep in mind. So some things, yeah,
Mm.
Prabhupada, how carefully he sees that uh, who is coming from what intentions, all these things, yeah. But we just follow what he has set up, what he said, without much thinking.
Yes, Prabhuji. Mm.
Yeah. I don't know with whom I went. Did Adirasa Prabhu or no? It is only me and Vibhu. We went. We went to Samadhi Mandir of Madhu Pandit. Huh?
Yeah, we went,
Vrindavan.
Prabhu.
You came na, Adirasa Prabhu?
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
There we heard a lecture.
Yeah. He is from which ashram? Which mutt was that? I think same, na? Chaitanya Gaudiya Mutt, I think.
Yeah, also forgot the name.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. He was also presenting nice. So we see that what is the philosophy at a general, like what is the greatness that they are explaining about Madhu Pandit ji, about Radha Gopinath ji. Yeah, to know about the glories, yeah, we can hear. When it comes to some tarka, or when it comes to some guru, ashraya, and all those things, na, this becomes little sensitive.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else would like to share? Any comments? If not, then yeah, have a nice evening. We will see us tomorrow. Anyone would like to read tomorrow Bhagavatam? Yeah. So you are
Hare
not
Krishna,
sure whether you
Prabhu.
will come tomorrow or
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Tomorrow, actually, we are going to Zurich Temple to join the recitation of Bhagavad Gita from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. We will try to join the class in the car while going.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. And I see that Gaura Bhagwan Prabhu is volunteering for tomorrow.
Okay, Prabhu.
So Prabhuji, try to read the purports if possible, if you have time. That's the reason why I was asking this.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Thank you so much. पंचाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। हिज होलीनेस सत्स्वरूप गोस्वामी महाराज की जय।